Good afternoon from sunny Craiova, where it's 32 degrees Celsius. I am here at the International Shakespeare Festival at its 13th edition. It's a festival that started in 1994, and it has been on the European map of theatre goers and Shakespeare fans for a quarter of a century. My name is Nicoleta Cinpoes. I am based in the UK. I am a professor of Shakespeare Studies and a very keen festival goer. Craiova Shakespeare Festival is one of my near and dear festivals, as I originally come from Romania, but from the opposite end of the country, where we don't reach such temperature either in Celsius or in Shakespeare festivaling. This year we're here at the festival as the first gathering after the very long pandemic, which has kept us away from theatre and away from Shakespeare. And quite poignantly, the name of the festival today, and you will see on every banner around Craiova, is "Where there is a will, there is a way." And it's extraordinary to be back in the middle of such events across 10 days in Craiova in the heat of May, when there are multiple distractions around the place. All the parks are looking top-notch at this point of in the summer. All the terraces are open, ice cream is on the cards, drinks are on the cards till the early hours of the day. We are here for 160 events on 20 different locations across the city, some of which have opened their doors, or their gardens for that matter, for the first time to do and to be at Shakespeare events. The festival has started on the 19th of May, and it will carry on reveling in multiple locations and with many happenings, events, main house productions of Shakespeare until the 29th of May. As usual, there are extraordinary highlights, very big shows that people have been waiting for years, if not a whole decade in some cases. So the lineup this year doesn't disappoint. We kicked off on the 19th with the extraordinary presence of Robert Lepage with his autobiographical show 887. Autobiographical more than perhaps other performances and productions. He himself came and performed twice in the main theatre, in the Marin Sorescu National Theatre in Craiova, to a full house and a sold-out show. The festival contains, as I said, over 150 events between the opening on the 19th and its final day, when another big highlight of the festival would be Tiger Lily's Hamlet, an extraordinary production that has finally arrived in Craiova. I know the story of this production, having seen it at another festival on the tour of Shakespeare festivals in Europe. I caught this production in Gdansk a number of years ago, and it was extraordinary to spend some time talking to the director after the show, and we had a conversation with him and with Emil Borogina, the founder of the Shakespeare Foundation in Craiova, and the heart and soul and the initiator of the International Shakespeare Festival in Craiova. And back in the newly opened theatre in Gdansk, on the footprints of the fencing school from the 16th century, where the travelling players from England would have performed shows out of Shakespeare's England, literally at the time, we discussed the possibility of bringing this Hamlet to Craiova. The hope was that it would arrive a few years ago. The issue, as it is sometimes with big productions and with set designs of this scale, the production set had to travel from Australia all the way to Craiova, and they wouldn't have been able to make it for that festival. So if you haven't seen the posters, if you've never heard of the Tiger Lilies, and you would like to see a Hamlet, yet another Hamlet in this festival, there are about 3 of them, please come on the 28th and the 29th of May to see this extraordinary interpretation of a play that has captured our attention at every edition of the festival, and in many countries that have festivals of Shakespeare. What is also new about this year's edition is the fact that lots of the locations that are being used are not conventional indoor venues. So truly it is spectacular to see how this edition of the festival has the support of the community. It has been embraced by the local and regional sponsors as much as by the local and regional spectators, who are not just visiting Craiova to see a show or so, but they are makers of these productions, some of whom get involved by arriving to see productions, some of whom are performing with intent or as new enterprises. It is exciting to see Shakespeare in small neighborhoods in Craiova. It is exciting to see Shakespeare in parks, many of which haven't been used before. It is exciting to see Shakespeare in car parks, which is definitely a first for people who go to festivals. And it shows very clearly that the 2 years that have kept us away from the excitement of this festival have been productive years, have been years in which an awful lot has happened behind the scenes, an awful lot has happened in discussions with the city, with businesses, with locations that are working together with the festival, and it is a festival truly for everyone, not a festival just for people who might be writing a book on something like this, as it has been my case on a couple of occasions, or people who are filming productions, or people who are bringing their shows here. It is indeed for everyone. I come to this festival every 2 years. My first trip to the festival and participation, so to speak, has been in 2010, when I came to support the unique, at that date, enterprise that Emil Borogina had in mind. It was an adventure to think about a festival that lasts normally for 2 weeks, that we could genuinely focus on one play alone and have 17 different productions of Hamlet in Craiova, as I said, across a fortnight. And it was with a lot of enthusiasm and with a lot of excitement that we came in 2010 to organize a very short event of 2 days in which we opened seminar discussions and panels on worldwide Hamlet in Craiova. And it is our first piece of work for the festival, in which we wanted to lend a hand and to extend our skills and enthusiasm for Shakespeare from the other side of the desk in the classroom, so to speak. And we came as a group of academics from around the world to enjoy seeing Hamlet in many languages and in different interpretations across the 2 weeks. We thought at the time, perhaps like the organizers of the festival, that it will be a one-off meeting of minds focusing on Hamlet for 2 weeks, and what a privilege that was. I am returning this year with the 7th edition of what has become a permanent fixture of the International Shakespeare Festival in Craiova, and that is the European Shakespeare Research Association Shakespeare and Performance Seminar. And this year it's been our opportunity and time to bring back, in the spirit of the festival, and share some of the gifts that the festival has given us across 12 years of its work. This year we come with a series of workshops and seminars which started on the 20th of May and will wrap up on the 25th of May. On the topic of festivals as game changers. And so far we've had contributions from over 40 scholars, practitioners, and young researchers, as well as not so young anymore researchers, on how festivals of Shakespeare have influenced our work whether it is in the classroom or whether it is with groups in which we practice Shakespeare, whether it is in theatres, whether it is in new pieces of writing, whether it is in theorizing different directions, critical directions in Shakespeare studies. And it gives me a great pleasure to say that it is this year that we come with our gift to the festival, one of the 11 festivals in the European network of Shakespeare festivals, a book about Shakespeare on European festival stages. It is the first book of its kind. It is a book that brings together 20 different authors who have mapped out what a grand tour of Europe could look for you at the time if you decide to take a Shakespeare vacation across 2 years, if possible, as some festivals are annual events, others happen every 2 years. We've been working with festivals and thinking about festivals for about 10 years. It is a group of 3 editors, myself, and I represent the University of Worcester, where I am based, Professor Florence March, who represents the University Paul Valéry in Montpellier, France, and Professor Paul Prescott, who represents the University of California, Merced. And it's been our joy, especially amplified during the pandemic, to keep traveling to Shakespeare festivals by virtue of editing an extraordinary collection of 12 different chapters about festivals of Shakespeare, or festivals where Shakespeare is performed and has been performed pretty much since the end of the Second World War. It's an invitation to think about festivals in a different way. It is an invitation to think of the kind of work festival has done to the people who've taken part in it, what has done to the production of Shakespeare on the stage, what festivals have done in terms of people's change of careers, change of perspectives, what the festivals have done in terms of changing the face of cities and localities, putting places on the map. My privilege has been to think back at 25 years of festivaling in Craiova and to write the chapter which I've entitled A World Stage for Many Players, the history of the International Shakespeare Festival in Craiova since 1994 to about 2020 at the time. So that's our first gift to the festival this year. It is the first launch that this book that has appeared 2 months ago, literally, edited, as I said, by 3 collaborators who have been charting the map of festivals across Europe for, as I said, 10 years. And it is the first festival where we launched the volume. The volume has been a labor of love, and we couldn't have done this without festivals giving us so much every time we travel and spend time in the various locations. The book is dedicated to all the festivals, and in particular to a festival organizer and director who has touched the lives of many theatre goers, many academics, many students in the classrooms, and quite rightly dedicated to his legacy of Shakespeare work and celebrating the extraordinary agency that he has invited us to believe in and to use in our everyday life, little as it may be. The book is dedicated to Jerzy Limon, the director of the Gdansk Festival until last year, when very sadly we've heard of his death. Of course, the festival book celebrates all the festivals included in it and gives a first taster of what festivals have managed to do in their small localities, from a very, very small village in the south of Bulgaria, where a little festival in a school yard happens every year, and how it's changed the life of that community, which had very little to live for or to live off in the late 1990s. to huge enterprises like the network of festivals in the Czech Republic and Slovakia, where 4 different castles host festivals, to, as you would expect, the Hamlet Festival that happens every year in Elsinore, probably one of the festivals with the longest history and reputation, a festival that is a place where any actor and director will probably wish to get to in order to produce their Hamlet. The other gift that we're bringing to this edition of the festival is the launch in full in 16 volumes of the complete works of William Shakespeare in the latest translation in Romanian. This is another project very dear to me. It is a project in which I had the privilege and opportunity to be involved. It is a project that started in Bucharest, of all places, in a cake shop over a cup of tea, and discussing with a good friend, George Volchanov, such an extraordinary idea. The series had its debut in Craiova in 2010, an edition at which we launched the first and the second volumes of the complete works, a translation of The Tempest and the entire collection of Shakespeare sonnets, as well as, for the first time in Romania, a Hamlet complete, and by complete I mean a Hamlet in the 3 existing versions, in the first quarto, in the second quarto, and in the folio. So as far as we were concerned, that was an extraordinary project in terms of the commitment to complete the now 39 acknowledged plays that Shakespeare wrote or collaborated on. And it is with great joy that 16 volumes that wrap up the work of Shakespeare have been relaunched at this festival. This is a project that has brought together a new generation of translators, and as it has been called the project of a generation, it also brings, very interestingly, 15 Shakespeare studies specialists who have contributed with introductions to each of the plays in the series. I have worked with great enthusiasm and with great joy in this project with George Volchanov, and I have been privileged to contribute an introduction to the Hamlet edition that came out in 2010 and open the series, and to the last volume in the series with an introduction of one of the earliest plays by Shakespeare, Titus Andronicus, which has a very short history in Romania, barely known to the public, but very closely related to Marin Sorescu National Theatre in Craiova, as the only production in my time and in the lives of many has been Silviu Purcărete's production at the National in Craiova. It is also the production that has sparked the idea of creating an international Shakespeare festival in Craiova, of all places. So if I haven't convinced you up to now that this is where you should be between the 20th and the 30th of May, whether you are taking a bus to get here, whether you're flying from any corner of the world, whether you're taking the train, or you simply want a nice drive to a warm, beautiful location where you could be delighted with Shakespeare, do come to see some of the events that will carry on for the rest of the week.